everyone. Welcome to Theories and Life. My name is Julia Chung, and I'd like to thank everyone who's joining in here today on the very first episode of this podcast. I'm not going to bore you with the details of sponsorships and ads. Today, we're going to get right into it. What is this podcast about, you may ask? To sum it up in just a few words, this podcast reevaluates identity within the social barriers of society. It is widely known that today, young adults and teenagers experience depression, constant anxiety, so much so that they are more often than not medicated before they reach the age of 18. I myself was first medicated when I was 14 years old. Vyvanse for ADHD, Paxil for anxiety and depression. Do we see any flaws in this? Why do young adults need so much medication to be normal? So, I don't want to bore you with a boring lecture, guys. I just need to brief you on some boring details that are crucial for you to understand my argument. Long story short, there's this theory created by Judith Butler called the performativity theory. Now, this theory suggests that gender and sex are not themselves a reality, but the way humans are taught to view it. Gender and sex are just the beginning of the many boundaries society has placed on us as human beings. From this theory, we are able to further challenge and question what other boundaries humans have subconsciously adapted to, even from a very young age. When I was a young girl, I always wanted to be a girly girl. I had played with dolls, makeup, dress up, played house, all of that. I wanted to be a girly girl so bad. But who was I looking for approval? If I had wanted to be a girly girl, couldn't I have just labeled myself as one? I was a little girl. How could society have already embedded this trait on me, of me looking to acceptance for society and not within myself? This theory lays the foundation that we often seek approval from society and not ourselves. And we let these societal boundaries dictate our every move, the life we live, the interests we have, subconsciously. So before we get ahead of ourselves, let's take a minute and stop what we're doing to think about the components of our lives. What kind of clothes do you wear? What kind of activities do you engage in throughout your day-to-day life? What kind of TV shows do you watch? Who do you idolize? Although I love nothing more than a response for you guys in this very moment, I know that's not the way podcast works. So I'm going to evaluate myself, for example. I wear pretty feminine clothing. I often go shopping, read romance novels, and take cycling classes every Tuesday and Thursday. I love going to Starbucks on a Saturday morning with my dog. But why? Is this truly my identity and the things that I enjoy doing? Or has society laid these out for me and almost forced me to do them? I like things like basketball, going hiking, even going fishing, even though it's pretty random. But when was the last time I did any of those things? Now let's talk about the influence of social media. I know, social media is the worst, and it's also an addiction. The biggest form of irony in social media is that these profiles on these social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat are also supposed to be accurate representations of ourselves. Yet, if you look on my Instagram, you'll likely find photoshopped images of me wearing really fancy clothes with lots of makeup and lots of hair product in my hair. Meanwhile, as I'm recording this podcast, I'm currently wearing my high school sweatpants with a pink robe and my hair in a bun. And I can confidently say this is myself in my truest form. I even think about sometimes how if I were to go missing and people used my Instagram photos as an example to spread the word, no one would even recognize me, and I would never be found. Social media and technology today inevitably and subconsciously forces us to create false images of ourselves, false pretenses that don't exist. We are able to hide behind versions of ourselves that just simply are created through technology. As you may know, the show Catfish is a prime example of this. But why do we do this, guys? Why do we catfish people? Why do we pretend to be people who are not? I'll give you the short answer, guys. Society has placed these expectations and these boundaries around all of us ever since the day we were born. We have been subconsciously trained to like certain things based on our gender, our looks, our ethnicities, etc. And it's honestly chaotic. It's nonsense. We spend our entire lives chasing for this approval by society, and then we die, and then what? Who cares? What kind of life did we live? Was it true to our identities? So the performativity theory basically explains that since the day we are born, we are set to certain gender and sex roles. And these ultimately dictate the kind of clothes we wear, the actions we pursue, the careers we take on, and everything in between. With the help of social media, we are almost pressured every single day to embark on certain actions and involve ourselves in day-to-day lives that will represent a certain kind of person that you are. If you look on TikTok, you'll often see a trend called Be That Girl, and it persists of a girl waking up at 6 a.m., going to the gym, drinking matcha lattes, and maintaining a healthy lifestyle. And I'm calling it, guys. I'm calling BS on the whole thing. With this trend, now young women will feel that if they don't live up to these type of expectations, they've failed their days. They've failed society, and they are not accepted. This is where this podcast comes in. I'm not trying to convince you guys to go granola and do things you've never done before. All I'm trying to say is challenging your day-to-day life and the things you choose to embark on will often lead you to questioning why you're doing these things in the first place. I think that social media doesn't account for the fact that young children, young boys and girls are all so impressionable today. And the things that they're exposed to can create so much pressure and impact, whether it was for that purpose or not. But guys, we have to acknowledge the flawed system. We have to acknowledge that young adults everywhere, all over the world, experience depression and anxiety on a day-to-day basis. Suicide rates are higher than ever. Our system is flawed and we need to regroup. Now, it's very easy to say all of this out loud, but it obviously isn't as easy to actually apply it to our lives and initiate real change. So how can we initiate this real change moving forward? After learning about this theory, I began to ask myself certain questions in my day-to-day life to alter my decisions and for them to be based on my self-interest and not societal expectations. Yes, I can go get my nails done right now, but I could also do something I normally don't do, like go play basketball or go on a hike. Yes, I could wear this really cute mini skirt that's gonna make me uncomfortable for the next 6 hours, but I also could wear my favorite and most comfortable pair of black leggings. I know this is about to sound insanely blunt, and you might be like, Julia, maybe take a chill pill for a quick sec, but the most influential statement that I've kind of manifested for the past 6 months is that, like, we really are all going to die. It's inevitable. Everyone dies. It is a part of life. It's scary and it sucks, but it is what it is. So why are we going to spend our whole lives trying to be accepted by society when ultimately we're going to die not having done the things we are passionate about and the things that hold us closer to our identities every single day? Caring about other people's opinions is the center of young adults, impressionable adults who are growing and learning. And that is the most flawed part about our system. We aren't taught to be who we want to be. We are taught to be people who fit within these social boundaries. For the past, I would say, 8 years of my life, I have spent it trying to make myself smaller to fit within these boundaries, to be accepted by people, to be loved and liked and entertained by people, and it's gotten me absolutely nowhere. I ended every single one of my days feeling absolutely empty of any fuel because I was busy filling the fuel of society and my environment around me. When Judith Butler created the performativity theory, she did it in hopes of informing people of these man-made boundaries that were created within society, hoping to open the minds of impressionable young adults and allow them an idea that will motivate them to be who they want to be. I can't stress this enough, guys. We only have one life. You could spend it chasing the approval of others, or you could just live your damn life doing what you want to do. Now, if you've made it this far in the podcast, I want to once again take the time to thank you for taking the time to listen to the podcast itself. This podcast doesn't yearn for money or power. It yearns to make change and encourage young adults to challenge the boundaries of society. This doesn't necessarily mean addressing the bigger picture, guys. Look at your life. Do you love it? Are you doing the things that hold value to your identity? So before I end this podcast, I'm going to give you guys an assignment to ask yourselves, which we're going to come back to in next week's episode. And it is basically to just take a few seconds out of each of your days and question whether the actions you are doing are things that you are doing for yourself, by yourself, or that are ultimately sponsored by the societal boundaries. It's crucial to know that despite all of this nonsense. We all have a choice. Despite our insanely corrupt government, our new regulations on vaccine mandates, forget all of that. Leave that all behind and focus on your life. In order to cure this depression and this anxiety that is occurring everywhere and anywhere in young adults, we must start doing things that are closer to our identity and to do things that we actually value despite the beliefs of others. We live in a day and age where it actually takes an extreme amount of effort to be happy. We don't live in times 100 years ago where people could just be happy without having to put effort towards it. This is the harsh reality of our world that we live in today. Now, I really hope I did my best, guys, to not make this a lecture, to not make this boring, and for everyone to relate on these ideas in some way. In our next episode, we're going to talk about body image, confidence, all of that, and how we can truly grasp the art of not caring anymore. So if I'm going to leave you guys with any words today, it's that I really appreciate each and every one of you for taking the time to listen to this podcast. And you only have one life, so live it however the F you want to. My name's Julia Chung, guys. I'll see you next week. Thanks for listening.